All right, welcome back to On Texas Football Special Live Edition. Just wrapped up Steve Sarkisian's weekly pregame Zoom call every Thursday. Sark goes live on a Zoom call with local reporters, and he did that before Saturday's home opener against San Jose State. I'm Jeff Howe. He's CJ Vogel. CJ down live on the 40 acres. CJ, let's get to a couple housekeeping items before we really dig into it. Let everybody get a chance to join in. Sark did not mention Emmett Mosley on this call, but he did mention him yesterday on the SEC coaches teleconference that if we do see Emmett Mosley on Saturday, it'll be in a limited capacity. They're going to continue to monitor him, but no other injury updates from Sark. As far as Wardell Matt goes with his arrest, I don't think it's any surprise. Kind of just reiterated what his statement was yesterday. He said, look, they're going to let the legal process run its course, and then if there's any punishment after that, it'll be handled internally with Wardell Mack. So that brings us to the call, CJ. Not a ton revealing from Sark today. Pretty business-like, buttoned-up approach by the head coach. Your initial thoughts on what we heard from Sark today?
Yeah, I thought he kept it by the book. There wasn't a lot of new information. I think everybody on that call today is expecting what most Texas fans are expecting, and that's, Texas to beat San Jose State with that type of vengeance that you'd expect with the poor performance coming off of that Ohio State game. So I don't know. There wasn't a whole lot that Sark revealed. I don't think he really said anything that's going to grab the big-time headlines going into this game, but the one thing I thought that was really interesting is always the week of practice leading up to a game. We heard it was a pretty solid week of practice going into Ohio State. I actually heard behind the scenes that Tuesday's practice wasn't one of the prettier practice. Texas has had it under Sarkisian, but he said, look, Tuesday and Wednesday, if we could take, a big positive, probably that was better than going into Ohio State, was that inside run game, the inside hole periods of practice against the good on good offensive line, defensive line. If Texas is looking to run the football and build off of what they did in the season opener, this upcoming weekend is going to be just that opportunity. Again, Central Michigan ran for 252 yards in week one against San Jose State. Texas against Ohio State, 166 on 4.5 yards per carry. I'm looking for that run game to really explode this weekend, and it sounds like the week of preparation is aligning in that favor.
Yeah, I want to get your take on this too, CJ. Sark mentioned, he was asked about Arch going under center because we did see it a lot more in the Ohio State game than we've seen Texas be under center probably at all during Sark's first 4 years. He said it's going to be a big part of the offense going forward. It's going to continue to be a big part of what they do. He mentioned the play action game that it helps with. He mentioned some other positives. Do you want to see Arch in the shotgun more, or do you want to see how this under center, the prospects of going under center, how it evolves?
Yeah, it was interesting Sark saying it wasn't a one-off to be under center as often as Texas was against Ohio State. That's going to be a focal point of this offense. And look, I think it does one of two things, right? Sark mentioned it. It's going to help the downhill run game. And with the backs that Texas is expected to have with their skill sets towards the back end of the year, that downhill run game definitely fits their strengths a little bit more, whether it's CJ Baxter. I think Christian Clark also has that one cut and go ability with a downhill running style that fits him very much. But for Arch, look, I think it helps him in that pro style, right? And I think the play action, if you're able to build on that running attack, that play action will open up vertically down the field. So for Arch, these next 3 weeks, again, it's about having that internal clock slow down for him to diagnose what's going on in the coverage side of things, but also feel like he's being protected in front of him, and that play action should help him. So, yeah, I do like it in the sense that I do think it allows Arch to utilize his mobility a little bit more, Jeff. So for me, just finding a way to master that skill, that formation, that approach over these next 3 weeks, that's crucial for Texas.
All right, real quick, want to thank our sponsor for this live edition of On Texas Football. That's our friends over at Hayes City Store, one of my favorite spots in the greater Austin area. There are very few restaurants that once you go to, man, you immediately know that place is just special, and Hayes City Store is definitely one of those places. Scratch-made Texas comfort food is what they serve. They got their famous truck stop enchiladas, the award-winning chicken fried steak, homemade desserts. Get the key lime pie. You'll thank me later. All of it's delicious and, again, made from scratch. They've got live music 6 nights a week, 50 beer taps, ice cold long necks and tasty margaritas. They got 11 TVs alone in their ice house. That's a perfect setup for game days. That Sunday brunch from 10 to 3, you want to take advantage of that. Hayes City Store is dog friendly. They've got a tree net for kids, plenty of space for the kiddos to run around. So gather your whole crew and get over to Hayes City Store. It's a great time out there in the Texas Hill Country. For more information, check out the website at HayesCityStoreTX.com. Hayes City Store, it's uniquely Texas. I want to get to a question we've got here from Rocky P. Why hasn't anyone questioned Sark on red zone? Sark addressed red zone right after the game on Saturday and talked about it a little bit on Monday. Look, at some point, I understand the frustration that fans have. And trust me, we've voiced our frustrations too. But at some point, CJ, there's only so much Sark is going to say about the red zone. And I really think there's only so much he can say. It's a deal where, man, the proof is in the pudding. And it's either going to happen or it's not. And I know, look, if Texas goes 5 for 5 in the red zone against San Jose State, in the grand scheme of things, it's not going to matter because it's going to be, okay, can you do it against Florida? Can you do it against Oklahoma? Can you do it against Georgia? Basically, I don't know what Sark can say at this point, at least for me, that's going to convince me that it's going to be better. He got to show me at this point.
Yeah, and look, he didn't mention anything. There weren't any questions today about the red zone. But, look, I think it's been asked enough. It's been an issue for 4 years, 5 years. Folks have asked Steve Sarkisian about the red zone and why Texas can't score. And I think that's why Sark hit everybody in the season opening press conference with that fun fact that he had. And in hindsight, I wonder if he maybe regrets coming at it with that approach because obviously it didn't go well in Ohio State. And it's a big reason why Texas ended up with an L coming back from Ohio State. But the point being, what more is there to say? The red zone sucks and the play calling sucks. The execution sucks. Everything about Texas's offense, when it gets inside the 20-yard line, quite frankly, it sucks. So there's no reason to think that anything new is going to develop until we see it on the field actually for our own eyes.
Yeah, S&D Tacos points out I only care about the red zone percentage against actual good teams. I think last year, CJ, their touchdown rate in the red zone, I think 8 red zone possessions in their 3 losses and only 3 touchdowns. So, that's the kind of stuff you're talking about. And you're not off to a great start this year against Ohio State. But, I just want to see the Sark try anything different. Look, they could probably try to perfect quarterback sneak and overpower San Jose State, and that's great. But, man, I want to see some creativity and more to that. CJ, Sark talked about the physicality, and I want to see if Texas can build on the run game and we see some, you can look for improvements and look game over game and see some things different. But I want to see some creativity from Sark. And if they can build on the run game, I really feel like that'll help you figure out your 4th and shorts between the 20s. And if you can find something on 4th and short or 3rd and short, where again, Texas hadn't been great the last few years either, if you can figure out something there, maybe that dovetails into you being a better team in the red zone and down around the goal line. So I think it's a multi-layered deal, CJ, that I think once maybe they figure out one of those things, you can slowly start to get some other things figured out.
Yeah, it's interesting looking back on where the most frustrating plays, most frustrating possessions and series have been for Texas in the red area. And all of them come down to like the similar theme of Sarkisian trying to force a square peg into a round hole. And it's not going to work one way or the other, yet he just continues to spam that entry point. And it doesn't happen, right? I look at that Oklahoma in 2023 where Texas goes heavy, heavy, heavy. Okay, now let's try the quick screen. Well, there's no creativity. There's no juice. There's nothing that makes me think that, okay, if this doesn't work the first time, we're not going to see the second and the third. Texas obviously tried that, running 4 straight times from the 9-yard line, in which they were stopped on the 1 against Ohio State on Saturday. So I'm with you. Show me something new. Show me something that isn't just trying to ram the ball up the middle for however many yards it is, because that clearly hasn't worked for the duration of their time in Austin. So, yeah, I'm with you. Show me something new. Show me the creativity. Show me why you're revered as an offensive guru, and that needs to be on display, especially against these teams where you're supposed to iron out some of these kinks and parts of your game that aren't ready to roll for SEC play.
Yeah, and look, let's be honest with this. We can Naaman Roberts, I see, has a comment on this. Colby TS also talking about AJJ, talking about it in the chat. Look, we can talk about Sark giving up play calling, and that can be debated until the cows come home whether or not he needs to. But the bottom line, as far as the 2025 season goes, CJ, he's not going to. So we can debate that certainly, and maybe it's something that we need to maybe readdress later if these issues don't get resolved. But for right now, I'm more concerned with, can Sark get this? Can he get this? You're skidding into the median right now, and it's not good. Can you get this thing back into the correct lane and drive this thing the way it needs to go when you're down around the goal line in the red zone? Because again, CJ, if you don't fix these issues, they're going to keep popping up when you face quality competition, and we're going to just be sitting here doing the same thing all over again. So I want to see some creativity from Sark in those. And to that point, to kind of cap what I just said, situational football offensively just needs to be much cleaner than it was against Ohio State.
Yes, it does. And I know Sark mentioned complementary football in the aspect that it needs to improve with field position and capitalizing on opportunities provided by the other side of the football immediately after the Ohio State game. And look, this is a game in which it shouldn't matter where you start on the field offensively. It quite frankly should not. And I go back to San Jose State only having, two players over 295 pounds on their defensive line. Not a single one is pushing 3 bills. If that's the case, with how big this Texas offensive line is and the confidence that they should have after that Ohio State debut, they should be able to run the football all day, all night until the cows come home on Saturday, Jeff. And as a result, that should be enough to give Arch the pocket that he needs to find the confidence vertically down the field.
Yeah, CJ, a couple of the things here before we get out. One, Sark was asked about Brandon Baker. He thought, penalties aside, Brandon Baker held up pretty well in the opener, and he talked about that last play, that failed 4th down, where the unblocked rusher did come from Brandon Baker's side, but Sark said it was basically a communication breakdown across the board with the offensive line. CJ, Derek Odom, the defensive coordinator at San Jose State, he's a multiple guy. I think that in a game like this, like you said, where you're overmatched physically, you're probably going to try a lot of different looks, a lot of different pressures, a lot of different blitzes. I think this is a really good week for the offensive line to grow in terms of communication and picking some things up, because I think they're going to see a lot more craziness, a lot more exotic looks this week than they saw last week from Ohio State.
Yeah, I'm with you. Again, continue to build. And the big thing for me is communication. I thought Texas did a great job of communication on that offensive line in the horseshoe. That's not an easy place to play for a guy like Connor Stroh in his first career start, like Brandon Baker in his first career start. And really the only time, and Sark mentioned this today, the only time that you really saw communication, be a detriment to the Texas offense was that 4th down that ended the game ultimately when Brandon Baker did not slide out to hit that defensive end. And, you can't have those, communication lapses whenever you play a team like that in that type of environment. So Texas will be faced with plenty more challenges going to Athens, going to Gainesville. But can you tighten that up in these, I don't want to call it a scrimmage, but in these games in which you ultimately should have the upper hand on every single possession? That's where you tidy this up and get to a point where it doesn't matter where you play.
Yeah, it's call them what it is, man. It's a payday game. I mean, you're paying these opponents to come in, and I think we all kind of know what the deal is. I don't know if you saw the Grambling press conference, but the coach was asked about going to play Ohio State, and he's like, hey, they got a great band. We got a great band. We're going to compete as bands. And he said, you guys know I'm joking. Like, we know what we're getting into. I think these the G5s and certainly the FCSs know what they're getting into when you go to play a team like Texas on the road. CJ, just a couple more things real quick. Sark was asked about guys who have the ability to create turnovers, and this is one thing that I know we didn't see on defense last week. Didn't see balls getting popped on the ground. Just not a lot of opportunities to play the ball in the air in the pass game. But he mentioned Leonga Lafau. He mentioned Ethan Burke and Colin Simmons, the ability to create strip sacks, which we've seen from both those guys in their careers. And then Jelani McDonald and Malik Muhammad on the back end. CJ, that's one thing I want to see, because when you're facing a run and shoot team, you're going to have plenty of opportunities to play the ball in the air. Be nice if we saw some tip balls, PBUs, interceptions. Really good week for the secondary to work on some things. And your pass rush is going to have infinite more opportunities this week than they did last week.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if San Jose State thinks that they can come to DKR right behind me and throw the ball 45 times with success, I don't know what to tell you. Not against this pass rush. And I know folks are down on the pass rush, but when Ohio State is having a 1 or 2 step drop back and getting the ball out quickly as a result to not put their quarterback in harm's way with, again, a new offensive line there, I do think that there weren't many opportunities for that pass rush to really pin its ears back. But to your point, if they want to throw the ball as often as they are with the athletes Texas has in its secondary, it should be an opportunity to create some turnovers and maybe get that turnover sword back out there.
And I'll run down the list of guys, CJ, that Sark said. And real quick on the turnovers, you lose Jahdae Barron, Andrew Makuba. You look at the guys they lost from last year's team that were really good at forcing turnovers. Just got to have some guys at some of those guys' turns to take to step up and take their seat at the head of the table. Guys, Sark said he's excited to see this weekend, CJ. Dalen McCutcheon, Nick Townsend, Nick Brooks, Lance Jackson, Xavier Filsamy, Christian Clark, Jarrett Gibson, Kobe Black. I think I got it all, the guys he mentioned by name. We talked here on the channel about Jonah Williams. Maybe Jonah Williams makes his Texas debut. CJ, even if it's anybody in that group, who are you excited to see on Saturday that maybe we didn't see against Ohio State?
Yeah, of that group that he mentioned, look, it's Dalen McCutcheon. He was that fourth wide receiver for Texas. He only played 2 snaps. It came down with the reception, so a pretty good ratio of receptions to snaps there. But look, someone has to take hold of that 4th spot until Emmett Mosley gets back. And I don't believe we're going to see Mosley this weekend. If we do, that's instantly the number 1 guy for me in terms of what he can do on the field. Aside from him, look, Nick Brooks is really intriguing, coming back and being a guy that perhaps contributes or becomes a 6th offensive lineman. I don't know what packages they have in store for him, but that talent is undeniable. And again, for second-year guys, it's the running backs. Does Christian Clark come back and take that 3rd spot by storm, or can a Jarrett Gibson, kind of rebound from a shaky year 1 in which ball security was an issue? Those are the 2 that I'm really keeping an eye on, because I don't think you're going to see a lot of plays or a lot of playmaking opportunities for those second-year wide receivers.
Yeah. As far as me on that front, I hope the training staff, the medical staff, they got the talcum powder ready, because it's going to be nasty and swampy and soupy on that field on Saturday. And that, CJ, you're going to get a really good opportunity, I think, to see some of these young defensive linemen. Lance Jackson rush the passer. We'll see Justice Terry probably make his Texas debut. I want to see if we get a Myron Charles, a Josiah Sharma sighting.
Yeah.
Maybe even hey, maybe if Melvin Hills is a guy that you want to see if he can take snaps. I mean, basically, if you're a scholarship defensive lineman at Texas, saw a little bit of Zeno Umezulo last week. Like some of those guys that we didn't see a ton. They can really get there, not just get their feet wet. They can dive headfirst into the pool this weekend, because there should be plenty of reps available. CJ, any final thoughts? Sark gave his final words before San Jose State. Your final thoughts as we close out the week of media availabilities and start to wind down our coverage as we get closer to game day.
Yeah, I mean, this is one where Texas gets right. Texas, the talent discrepancy on both sidelines is pretty wide. It should be a game in which Texas is in the mid-40s, if not a 50 burger. If that's the case, then I think everybody will be sitting back thinking, okay, the offense has found its rhythm. Can they build on that for 2 more weekends before SEC play? But ultimately, there's no reason for Sarkisian and for Arch Manning to not go out there and have a big day statistically.
Yeah, I think this is a great week offensively to come out of this. And I hope we can say this coming out of the game, CJ, when you and Coach Shipley and I sit down to do grades. We're saying, hey, this is kind of who we can see Texas wants to be on offense. They've got some good kind of core principles or core things that they found against San Jose State, and let's see them build on it. Really, really good week to start to find your identity. If you find your identity on offense, you can probably start to find it in situational football in the red zone as well. CJ, thank you for the knowledge and expertise as always. Thank you to Matthew behind the scenes for producing it. Thank you to the entire On Texas football staff. Thank you to our sponsor, Hayes City Store. And again, Hayes City Store TX.com is the website you want to go to find out more about Hayes City Store. Really good weekend, opening weekend of the NFL. They got that Sunday brunch again. Really good weekend to get out into the Texas Hill Country and go enjoy some Texas comfort food made from scratch over at Hayes City Store. If you're not a member over at ontexasfootball.com, get over to the site right now. Sign up using the promo code OTFOG, and that'll get you 1 year of access over at ontexasfootball.com for $39.95. Make sure you like this live stream and that you're subscribed to the On Texas Football YouTube channel. That way, whether it's before, during, or after every Texas game this fall, you're not missing a minute of On Texas Football's coverage of Longhorn football. For CJ, for Matthew, for the On Texas Football staff, for our friends at Hayes City Store, I'm Jeff Howe. Thank you so much for watching and listening. And until next time, hook 'em.